Hey, welcome back, guys. Another Tim Cain video for us. This one is on overanalyzing games. If you have seen me overanalyze Crimson Desert recently, this should be very relevant. And maybe he's about to call me out. I do a lot of overanalyzing. But you know what? I love it. I like doing it, okay?
Hi everyone, it's me, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Today I want to talk about overanalyzing games.
Yeah.
This is something a lot of people do. They like to take a game and analyze it. But if I want to be less charitable, they like to take a game and they like to pick at it and just pick at it and pick at it and pick at it. Sometimes they do this without even playing the game. They heard about it. They heard it.
Okay, that's not me. To be fair, I don't do that. I like to be very honest about games. You know, we went in, we played a lot of games that weren't so great or that people didn't find so great, and I just say I like something, I don't like something. You know, what are you gonna do? Like, I didn't hate Dragon Age Veilguard. I didn't like the writing or the characters, but the game was technically a lot of fun. It was very beautiful, and the combat was a lot of fun too. You know, it's like I try not to nitpick a game without playing it. And I like to play games relatively fully before I break those down.
Description. They saw a trailer.
Yeah, seen a trailer.
This happens for TV shows too, but I'm going to stick to just games. I mean, I was shocked the other day when I saw a reviewer reviewing a show he hadn't watched. He based it entirely on a trailer. Anyway,
I need to know which show that
you
was.
can pick at this game so much, right down to its core, and then something is lost. That's kind of what I want to warn you about. I'm not saying don't do this. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I am warning you. If you overanalyze anything too much, especially games, you will make yourself unhappy.
Yes.
And let's talk about why. Let's first talk about something.
Well, it's like it's these people that no, I know exactly who he's talking about. It's these people that go into a game with a prejudgment, presupposition. I think that's the right word for it. Of what the game is going to be. This game is trash because this. And then you say, well, have you played the game? No, why would I buy that trash? Well, it's like, just shut up. What are you doing? Let Tim, I will let Tim finish. Okay, I'll press play. Jesus. Sorry, Tim.
To it. Humor. If you've ever had a friend who didn't get a joke that you said, and they asked you to explain it
all the time,
and you did, you can already tell it's not as funny anymore. It's just not as funny. And the reason for that is explaining anything kind of removes you from the essence of what it is. Just trying to explain a concept to someone doesn't make them understand the concept. Well, it doesn't let them know the concept. It just lets them think they understand it. By the way, that humor thing was a trend for a while. I saw somebody online saying, if someone says something to you that's offensive and they say they're joking, just ask them to explain it. And I was like, well, I mean, I get it that if you ask them to explain it, it won't be funny anymore, and you're trying to get them to be less offensive. So I understand why it works. But just understand that explaining any joke makes it unfunny. Even great jokes can be ruined by people who break it apart.
Yeah, I mean, and we see this. I think it's even goes beyond. I think writing is a really good focus of this because we recently played Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, right? Great game, exceptional game, 100% recommend. And there was a lot of controversy about a specific character who was a Muslim character from Africa. And I had seen some of the controversy online before I had met the character. And it sounded bad, right? It sounded like this was kind of deliberately forced in order to lecture the player. And I'm not a fan of writing, no matter who it's coming from. I'm not a fan of like being lectured while I'm playing a game. So I played it, and I got to meet this character. And he actually became one of my favorite characters of the game, and all of the criticism about him was completely unfounded. At no point did this character lecture. If anything, I think that it was a really fun way to have a dialogue between different cultures from two characters who respected each other, who were sharing information about their cultures, and were very honest with each other about things that they liked and didn't like about their own culture and the other culture that they were hearing. It was really great, and it was very nuanced. But it's, people will see this. They're going to make that judgment about it. and then they're going to write that off and start just spreading a whole bunch of bullshit online about it. And yeah, I don't like that. Judge it for what it is, not for what you think that it is, or from what you heard that it is. Simple as that. Yeah, we're talking about KCD2.
I mentioned that I went to school with someone who wanted to be a stand-up comic. And sometimes it was exhausting being around him because you'd say something and he'd pick it up and he'd repeat it and he'd say it again and he'd say it again and then he'd ask you if you meant something like this and he'd say it again and he'd rephrase it. And I'm like, dude, chill. You're not on stage. I don't want to develop jokes with you. Just something funny I said. Let it go. By the way, this is also why humor in games is so hard. I've got a video on that. Making a funny game is difficult. Making a game is difficult. Making a funny game is layering more difficulty on top of it.
And everybody's going to connect with that humor. Yeah.
And this is what a lot of people don't get, especially anything that's timely or cultural. I've talked in here, like if you put things in like that in your game, if someone doesn't get it and they have to have it explained to them, something's lost already. Forget that it may not be a joke and you've lost the funny. If you put in a cultural reference that's so obvious that people don't understand what's happening or why the NPC said what they said until someone has to explain it to them, and then they find out, oh, this was based on a funny thing that happened in the news, or this is a weird thing a president said once. It's like,
this is exactly why I prefer old South Park to new South Park. I stopped watching South Park at like roughly, I don't know, the Tegrity Farm stuff. And even before that, it had started to get so cultural because they had run out of ideas to actually make funny with the characters and setting that they had. And, you know, you go back and you watch, I think there are some older episodes of South Park that are like kind of shit with this. But there's also some really good ones where it's just, you don't have those cultural references, or you might have like one or two, but they're just very like in the moment and they don't really, the whole episode isn't built around them. But now they just build like the entire episodes around cultural things. And number one, I don't really care. I don't really care about it. And it's not funny to me because they're not really being nuanced with writing anymore. They're very clearly taking a side. And even if I agree with the side, I just don't find it interesting. Because I don't know. I don't want to just watch something that I agree with 24/7. It's boring to me. Played the South Park video games. I have played the South Park video games, and I think they're pretty good. I really like Stick of Truth. So it's a really fun game to me. But if you do this in your game, and we see this with games a lot where they try to make cultural references, it just is not going to age well. It really isn't. I mean, look at Borderlands 2. Like, some of those jokes were maybe funny to you if you were 12 when it came out. It does not land the same way anymore. And the good thing about Borderlands 2 is that you have Handsome Jack, and he is a good villain, and I think the general like core focus of the game's story is still a human level kind of story. And a lot of the maps and the gameplay are great. But a lot of the humor in that game just does not hit the same way. And it just is not very fun to me. I'm with Tim on this one.
Oh, okay. Yay, I guess. And games are very similar to humor in that respect. Too much analysis ruins them because they're games. It's a video game. If you attempt to analyze it too much, you will destroy what's cool about the game. Now, you may want to do this to understand a mechanic or a structural foundation or a storyline beat. If that's what you're trying to do, great. But understand you're not going to have as much fun with that game anymore because...
I'm going to be honest though, Tim. Maybe you disagree with me on this point. I find it hard as a game designer to not break down and analyze games. But I agree with your point is that it makes it less fun. But honestly, once you understand the magic behind making games, I think that a lot of that magic is lost, right? You know how it works behind the curtain. Something is lost there. Like, I agree. Sometimes do I overanalyze like engines or games? Yes. I don't do it as a way to... You don't think this applies to game designers who really love it? I think you're right. I think this is more focused on players themselves. And if that's the case, I 100% agree. I don't know if I can turn off that part of me that likes to analyze games as like from a designer developer perspective. but it doesn't make me hate it anymore. If anything, I think that when I see something and I don't understand how they achieved it, or if I'm thinking that is so hard to do, how did they manage to do that and just build it in such a good feeling way? Like that to me is exciting. That gets me excited about a game. So I agree with you. I think you're right, Dance. I think you're 100% right. This is not really aimed at me, and I'm taking it a bit personally.
Knowing how a mechanic works a certain way, like based on an attribute or a timer or whatever's built into that mechanic, can ruin playing it. You may like, oh, now I understand it. I would love to make a game that uses that. But knowing it works that
I know he is absolutely pointing it out from a developer's perspective. He is absolutely saying it from a developer perspective. Like, oh, I would like to make a game. Let me back up. Let me back up to get his whole point about this.
A certain way, like based on an attribute or a timer or whatever's built into that mechanic, can ruin playing it.
Yes.
You may like, oh, now I understand it. I would love to make a game that uses that. But knowing it works that way can ruin your enjoyment in the game.
I'm going to be honest, though. I don't know if I can stop doing that. Because, for me, it's like, it's a problem-solving thing. It's like, how did they achieve this? How did they achieve this? Let's break it down. What's the puzzle behind this? Oh, they used a timer, and then they're setting this thing on a timer, but then delaying it if, I don't know, this action is used or this weather condition is active. That's really cool. I really like that. So for me, I think that analyzing it and understanding it, for me, it makes it more fun because I can respect the design behind it. But I do understand that there are cases where I think you could analyze it and that magic is lost. But at least for me, understanding the magic almost makes it more interesting because I can respect the amount of work that went into making. At least that's kind of like my viewpoint on it.
I know people who play RPGs, sometimes my RPGs, and they make a build they don't like, or they play a particular build in a way they know they won't enjoy because they wanted that mechanic and they wanted the results in the game that comes from using that mechanic. And then they turn around and go, I didn't like that and it's your fault. And I'm like, you like run and gun. Why didn't you take the gun skill? Why did you buy speech? Well, there were all these places that I saw the speech skill could be used. And I'm like, but you don't even like talking to NPCs. And he goes, yeah, but I save ammo or I read online. And it's like, guess what? Too much self-reflection like that on a game, too much analysis, diving into the game and deciding what you're going to do based on it by developers or gamers can ruin it.
Yes. I think Josh Strife-Hayes put it really well. I've mentioned this before, where he says that it's you have to meet the developers halfway. And I think that the same is true for developers too. The developers have to meet the players halfway, where if you're a developer, you're making a game for an audience. And if you are part of the audience, you are playing somebody else's art piece. And if you try to push it too far in one way, you have developers who don't listen to players and ultimately make something that's going to alienate a lot of people, or it feels like they are wanting you to pay money to just accept their product without any sort of feedback. On the flip side, you end up with players who think that the game should be exactly the way that they dictate it, and everything that they want to do is the way that the game should work and function. And I think both of these are bad. There is a middle ground, and you have to meet the developers halfway. You can't go into a shooter game, which is about like shooting enemies, or let's use a game like Uncharted, right? Everybody knows Uncharted. Linear game. You go through the story beats. There's no choices to be made. You play the levels. You deal with the problems, the puzzles of the enemies in confined levels, and then you move on to the next level, which is a puzzle, a cutscene, or more enemies. If you are wanting Uncharted to be a game where you have open world exploration of locations, and well, actually they did make a game like this, but if you want that, that was the spin-off game Lost Legacy. But if you want the game to be that at its like core, then you're going to be disappointed. So how do you solve this? You can solve this in like a couple ways. Number one, be very, very strict about how you communicate with the game. Don't overpromise. Don't be Sean Murray with promising no man's sky. You can go anywhere and do anything you want, when clearly that's not the case. Be very clear about what you can and can't do, what the game is and isn't going to offer, and who the game is for. This is a game for people who really like deep, well-written stories, high production value cutscenes, and immersive action. For fans of Indiana Jones or Tomb Raider. This is your Uncharted audience. This is who it's for. And if you don't like those things, or you're looking for something more, this is not the game for you. Simple as that. But players need to know that, and players need to accept that if they buy that and it's not for them. The only time I leave a bad review on a game is when I bought it, because the marketing made it seem like I was part of the target audience, and I didn't like it. If I play a game thinking, well, I don't think I'm part of the target audience, we'll see, and I end up not liking it, I don't leave a bad review, because the game, I went into it knowing that game probably wasn't meant for me. I'm not really meant for The Sims. I played The Sims, I didn't leave bad reviews for The Sims, and I don't say bad things about The Sims, because I know this is not a game that's meant for me. But I don't know if everybody can do that. But I can't run people over. You can run people over in Uncharted, actually. Wait, can you? I don't know if you can in Lost. I think in Lost Legacy you can. I think maybe in Uncharted 4 you can too. Good games.
For a developer, NPCs explaining everything that's happening in your game is not fun. But for gamers, and for worse, gaming pundits, for lack of a better word,
please don't
explaining the game's NPCs or the lore or anything else in so much detail that it's like, now it sounds mechanical. It's like it started off of that vampire's trying to kill off the royal family. It's like, well, the reason he's doing it is he had a kid once, but he was still mortal, and then he got turned into a vampire, but he tried to protect the kid, but then the royal family screwed over his kid, and he vowed a vendetta, and what he's doing is he's going through, and first thing he's going to do is ruin their fortune, so now they're the poorest kingdom in the country, and it's going to decimate them economically. At this point, I'm like, I get it.
100% true. 100% true. I mean, obviously, I agree with Tim on this. What I often tell people who are like trying to make games is that nobody cares about your lore until you make them care about it. You can write as much lore as you want. We have lore for Redlock. Our game's in pre-production. We have lore, and we do that partly because a lot of the level design is going to be dictated by the lore. It's hard sci-fi, so we need to write how this facility functions in order to actually build it and put the right things in the right places. But nobody cares about Redlock's lore because I haven't made them care about it. I haven't put the breadcrumbs in there yet for them to get invested. I haven't left the audio logs in order for them to hear a bit about it and to engage with some of the characters or the conundrums, some of the problems, the issues. They're not going to care about that until I hopefully correctly make them care about it or entice them to care about it. And if I throw a whole bunch of cutscenes or the opening shot isn't super, investing, or they didn't come into the game expecting this massive lore drop and long cutscene at the start of it, they're going to skip it. They're not going to care about it. That's really hard to do correctly, by the way. So, I don't really like reading. I don't want to read like a whole book to understand your game in its, like opening moments. It's really not fun for me because I don't care. I don't know if I like your game yet. I don't know if I like your world. And until I make that decision, I don't really want to sit there for hours and hours and hours and read lore or talk to an NPC. And I'll lose interest because it's like, okay, I just want to play the game. Can you find a better way to get me invested? That's tough to do though.
Some people like this, but all of this is forgetting the fun. Fun is a spontaneous thing that arises ineffably from a game. You can ruin it with overanalysis. This overanalysis might be by devs making the game. When you're developing a game, overanalysis can lead to bad things. You may, like I mentioned, create an NPC that does forced exposition of lore because you're terrified that someone playing the game may not have seen something on a terminal or read something in a book or noticed one line that the NPC says. So you force exposition and dialogue that can't be skipped or cutscenes that are forced into the game and are very long because you're like, I'm going to make sure they
Kojima.
understand what I'm talking about here.
Okay, but I will say, in fairness to Kojima, he makes really good cutscenes. That is a guy who has taken every single beautiful lesson that filmmaking has ever taught humanity and has injected that into games in a way that he makes experiences. And if you're somebody who really gets into that, like Death Stranding, people think Death Stranding is a walking simulator. It's definitely not a walking simulator, but if it is, it's the best story in a walking simulator I've ever seen. It's very, very hard to do. You need to assume that most players, because it's true, most players are not going to read your optional lore and listen to your optional dialogue. That should be flavor. It should be character building. But most players are going to skip through those story beats. And so you have to tell a story in a way that is easily understandable to somebody who is not going to get engaged. But then let people who do get engaged, reward them with deeper understandings of mechanics of like the world and how it works and the characters that inhabit it, or small little isolated stories like side quests. It's a good example to help build everything up to a greater understanding. And if you can make the core story or world interesting enough, you will slowly start to pull people away from the main story into the side content. And the more you do that, and the better that content is, the more that people are going to engage in it. It's easier said than done. You did that before Cyberpunk. You read all the lore. I do that for some games. That I'm really excited about.
It also leads to checklist games that I've seen people mention before. Like, they play a game and it's like, yeah, it feels like the developer went, yep, we need that feature. Yep, we need characters like this. Yep, we need this kind of dialogue or whatever.
Tim, do not get me started on checklist game design. Please do not. Or if you do, make a separate video about checklist game design, and I will have a 5-hour reaction to it. I could rant for days and days about checklist game design. It really bothers me.
Not that they wanted it, not that it supported anything in their design pillars. They just went down the checklist because they'd analyzed other games and said,
oh, new game has this feature and people really liked it, so our game needs to have this feature too. Oh, but typically shooters have this, and this thing, so our game needs to have all those 3 things as well. Checklist design. Stop it. It's like they're so focused on making what has already existed that they don't ever ask themselves, does our game even need it? Does our game need XP and levels? Do we actually need it? And in some cases, you might be like, you know what? Our game design doesn't really support having XP or levels. Our progression comes from elsewhere. The player is rewarded with the knowledge that they obtain over time. We don't need to have some pseudo progression system tacked on top just because every other RPG game has XP and levels. Like, okay, we can add it, but it's not going to serve a purpose beyond another menu that you get to click to open to get dopamine points or having done the things that you already did. Yeah, cut it. It's like it's a waste of time, and I'll tell you what, XP and levels, perk screen, icons, more menus, more gamepad stuff that you have to debug, sounds for that. You can find cooler ways to have progression. I mean, look at Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a beautiful example of very lean progression that is driven almost entirely by your accomplishments and your discovery of the open world. What you discover leads to interesting, unique locations, which leads to interesting, unique weaponry and armor, which leads you to then change your build or experiment, and you create your build from that. I mean, I've played hundreds of hours of Elden Ring, and I still discover locations I have never been to before. And even on top of that, there's like a million builds that I've never tested around because I just, I would have to play the game with that build, and that would take more hours to play through. But it's all through there. It's not through some generic level up screen, even though you have levels and you have stats. But honestly, the game doesn't require that you do any of that. You can beat the game as a level 1 club swinger wearing your underwear. The game is entirely skill-based. So you can just do what you want in that game. It is a game that allows freedom and focuses on making unique experiences and providing you with different build variety that isn't even necessary to beat the game, but that's, the 1% of the 1% that can beat the game without taking any damage, right? But it is possible. It is possible.
This is what people seem to like, so I'm going to put in more of this.
Yep.
It leads to a cautiousness. I have a whole bunch of videos on game caution. I'll link them below. But this kind of analysis may lead to a lack of exploring new things. If you can't find other games that did this feature, you may go, there's probably a good reason. Let's not do it. And then you don't even explore making that feature.
Sometimes that is true. Sometimes that is true.
And then guess what? Your game comes out and people are like, I've seen all this before. Why didn't they make anything new? Because they were being very analytical. And finally, the thing that I hate is that forced emotion stuff. And this is why I tend not to like romance in my RPGs. It's usually forced on you. You will care about this character. You will care about this storyline or this event. It's completely unearned, but the game kind of pushes it on you because someone read, hey, everybody likes fantasy, everyone likes romance. Let's put it in our game. If it's not done really well and with care,
that was great,
meaning with a lot of time spent on it, which means a lot of money, which means it was part of your budget, which means you did the romance instead of other things.
Yep.
If you don't do that, then it's an unearned thing and it will turn a lot of people off.
I'm going to be honest. When I played Baldur's Gate 3, I felt very weirded out at how pushy the NPCs were to romance me. It was actually uncomfortable, as if somebody was pushing themselves on me in real life. I didn't like it. You know, I kind of prefer the old school RPG method of some characters will not be interested in you. They may not like your gender. They may not like your race. They might just be sickened by your values and ethics. And it felt a lot harder to romance them. But when you could succeed at that, it felt earned. Or if somebody, you connected with somebody on like an ethical or moral level, it felt like you had a connection that was beyond developers wanted you to sex this person because, sticking dick in hole is haha funny and sells well. I didn't like that. I'm totally with Tim on this. I don't like when the romance feels so forced or padded on because they're like, well, we're making fantasy RPG game. People like romance. People want a kissy kissy and see nipples, so let's insert that into the game. But then it's like, it's so choose romance option in dialogue to sex character. And and like your character automatically says the right thing. It feels so artificial that it doesn't feel like romance. It feels more like I'm doing some form of sexual abuse on this NPC that is so NPC sexual that they just go along with it. It's very weird, and it's very artificial, and I don't like it. Red Dead 1 ruined games for me for like 6 months. Red Dead 1 is such a good game. I love that game.
Now, it sounds like I'm talking to developers here. I'm also talking to gamers. You can do it too. You can take a game that's fun, silly fun, and ruin it by looking for tropes and messages and deeper meanings. Because I guarantee you, if you look hard enough and deep enough in anything, games, books, TV shows, if you look, you will find what you're looking for. You will find a way of tying it into something you know. I know on here I've noticed a trend where people will ask me if a book or a movie or a TV show has influenced one of my games. And if I say no, they seem incredibly, deeply disappointed, to the extent that some of them don't believe me. They're like, oh no, that's too, it's too coincidental. All I can say is this: the human condition is universal. Sadness is everywhere. Happiness is everywhere. Illness is everywhere. Bad people are everywhere.
Sadly.
You're going to see those in many variations in every piece of entertainment product you get. I would be shocked if some of the ideas that appeared in my games hadn't already appeared in other games and in other mediums well before mine and continue to appear afterwards. Even though
I don't have any delusions that most of the games or design that I have has existed before. That's why I don't like this whole idea of unique selling points, because honestly, sometimes the unique thing about your game is that the combination of things you're doing either hasn't been done before or hasn't been done in a way that hasn't been to your production level, or it hasn't been pushed to the right market. Adding in one feature to a game can change its entire audience. We take Redlock. Redlock is story-driven, hard sci-fi platformer, precision platformer, with puzzles and with some additional immersive elements. And so it has a specific audience. The moment I add shooting and aliens, the audience shifts. And it could even be to a bad point or a smaller audience. I don't have any delusions that precision platformers have never existed before, or hard sci-fi games, or immersive sims, or I don't know, story-driven precision platformers. But I have a pretty good inkling that this hasn't existed significantly in this combination. I am reducing the target audience, I think, a little bit, I believe. But I'm trying to make something that at least I'm passionate about, that I think will have an audience, and I want to make the game for that audience. That's it. I don't think you need to overanalyze it. I'm not trying to say there's not some deeper message behind my game where it's anti-capitalism, anti-communism. It's a the main character is right wing and it's about anti-left wing or vice versa. It's just like, this is 250 years in the future. I don't know what the world's going to look like then. I'm no sage or oracle. There are some things that are weird about my universe. There are some things that make sense. There are some things that I think are positive for the people in the universe and things that I think are negative. You don't have to overanalyze it. Just your goal is to climb from the bottom of a facility 2.5 kilometers up to the top of it. Just do that. Don't read into it too much. Red Dead 2 ruined gaming for you in general? Maybe GTA 6 will save me. Red Dead 2, very few games can create magic to the point where, as a developer, it makes me feel mystified. Red Dead 2 was a game that I felt mystified, and there was so much detail that I was like, there's no way that this game is going to have detail here. And it had it. There's no way that they're going to go do this because it's way too expensive to have group, what's the word for it? In-game cinematic with player control where all the characters are singing campfire songs and you can go up and talk to these characters while this is going on. And they did it. They spent the money. They debugged it. They wrote all the writing for it. Incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And I haven't seen really a game reproduce that. It's amazing. That game is still incredible to this day.
The people who are making those things have never played any of my games. So what am I saying? What is the point of all this? Ultimately, I want you guys to enjoy things, and especially enjoy my games. And just know that everything doesn't need to be deep. Everything doesn't need to be picked apart into an inch of its life for you to enjoy it. Sometimes you can just like it. I like that. If someone asks you why, it's like, I like it. Got a cool vibe. It was fun. You don't have to explain fun. Same way, I don't have to explain my love of dark chocolate and why white chocolate's hideous. That's what I think. I don't have to explain it to people. And if you want to eat all the white chocolate, more power to you. Ugh. Anyway, I've talked about Shadow Dog.
Half of your videos, Tim, always come back to chocolate. Half of them come back to chocolate. You are too much of a maniac with that chocolate. I do like dark chocolate though.
On here before. I've got a whole video on Shadow Dark. One reason I like that game is it focuses its attention very narrowly onto it's dangerous going into scary places to look for treasure, but that's where the treasure is. The whole game's based on that.
Yeah.
There's no politics. There's no social commentary. It's a pure fun game, and I love it. Not every game needs to be like that, but when I remember reading the Shadow Dark, I heard about it, and then I bought the Shadow Dark book, and I'm like, they get it. They get it. Sometimes a game is just for fun. And
in
yeah, 2026, I also have a video about fun. So sometimes just turn your brain off and enjoy a game. It's fun.
Again, I mean, Tim is the wise man here. We bow down to his complete knowledge of this industry. But I really agree. Jokes aside, I really don't like people that overanalyze something where it's like, oh, that you play a main character as a woman and now it's okay, it's now the game is woke. or another white male main character? Of course, because the developers think this, this, and this. And it's like, Jesus Christ. I mean, do we have to? Do we have to do this? Can you just... I understand you don't like a scene that appears, is leaked in a game before it comes out, but give the game a chance, okay? You know, so many people were like, yeah, they're activists. You're right, they are activists. How much bullshit about Ghost of Yotei was there before that game came out? I played the entire game. I got the platinum trophy. Nothing that people thought was in that game was in that game. It was a really good game. I really liked Atsu's story. I liked the bosses and the fighting. The world was really beautiful. The music was amazing. It was a healthy improvement upon the mechanics of Ghost of Tsushima. They are both good games. I didn't sense a lick of activism from the developers in that game, but people will just constantly tell you game was woke because female character, blah 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 blah. I don't know. I'm really tired of it. I'm really tired of it. Come on, Karen, relax. Go get a carrot up there. Take some heat off. All right. Well, if you like that one, we can do one more today, and then I'm gonna get going because my voice is starting to go. So you guys get to decide what it is. But if you're watching on YouTube, I hope you like that one. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And see you in the next one.